Okay, so you see that pricing continuing for 2 to 3 quarters. What could get in the way of those pricing, higher prices that we've seen at least over the last little while?
Well, I think it has to be the demand. From a supply standpoint, we feel very good that the supply is kind of limited by some of the manufacturing issues that I talked about. But as I said, demand, it's primarily coming from the incremental demand is coming from data center. And as we head into second half, you also benefit from seasonal strength. For example, that's when the smartphones and the PCs, the builds happen on the iPhone side as well as Android. So I think, that seems very healthy to me. But if something happens on the demand front, that could disrupt the market.
Yeah, could a potential escalation in trade tensions between the US and China be that very thing? And do the US semiconductor stocks look vulnerable in the wake of these increasing trade tensions? Because I know that for Qualcomm, it has about a 65% exposure to China. And we saw earlier this week some of the semiconductor stocks, of course, falling on that round of potential fresh tariffs imposed by the US on China.
Yeah, Matt, it is interesting, but I do want to clarify something that, yes, when you look at Qualcomm's numbers, yeah, the China exposure seems very high, but that's because most of the electronics manufacturing is done in China. It doesn't mean that those chips are being consumed in China. So what happens is that a company like Intel or Qualcomm, they make the chips either in the US or Taiwan, and then those chips get shipped into China. And then, they end up in a smartphone or a PC, and then those smartphones and PCs get exported out of China. My estimate is that if you look at the China domestic consumption, China is probably 20–25% of the overall consumption for the semiconductor industry. The industry is roughly $400 billion or so. So we're talking about $100 billion worth of demand coming from China. The issue here is, though, when it comes to tariffs, I believe the authorities are talking about imposing tariffs on, exports from China. And that's a relatively small number today when it comes to semiconductors. What's interesting about that is that, many US semiconductor companies actually manufacture chips in China. So it'll be interesting to see whether US government is ready to impose tariffs on American products coming out of China.
Still watching? Perfect. Click here to watch another great video from CNBC International. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.